Hello, everybody. Welcome to the How We Got Here podcast. Today, we have an incredible guest. I'm really, really excited to introduce her. She's a good friend of mine, Taylor Moran. Taylor, tell us about yourself. Introduce
Hi.
yourself.
Um, yeah, this is really cool. Thank you so much for letting me be here. I'm Taylor Moran. I am a person in long-term recovery. I work in substance use disorder treatment and I work in collegiate recovery in Philadelphia. I am from Staten Island, New York, moved to the Poconos in about the year 2000. I was in like seventh grade. And I've been out in Pennsylvania ever since then. And I moved out to this Philadelphia area in 2019 to get clean and sober. And I've been out here ever since. And I've been to recovery houses. And now I run one and I run a collegiate recovery program.
I love that. So,
Hmm.
for our listeners, what is collegiate recovery?
Yeah. So collegiate recovery is a program for individuals that are in recovery from substance use or seeking recovery from substance use or even just wanting to have look at their relationship with substances in some way on college campuses. And that can be derived from a health and wellness perspective. And so there are different ways that collegiate recovery programs look on different campuses. It just depends on what type of resources are there. But a lot of it comes from that health and wellness perspective. And there are robust programs all over the world, which is really cool. I went to a every year there's an annual conference through the Association of Recovery and Higher Education, ARHE for short. And I met people from London. I met people from Canada, which is just so cool. But you know what? Like recovery and addiction and stuff, everything is everywhere, right? And it doesn't discriminate in any kind, in any way. But it's really wonderful to see that universities and college campuses are taking this type of initiative to support their people on campus. I didn't have that when I was in college, so it's really refreshing to know when I was applying for this job that it's there. But yeah, so it's resources. A lot of what will happen in those programs is they'll do a lot of outreach on campus, which is really, and I'm really just saying it from my experience, but it's also I just know from others as well. A lot of outreach on campus, a lot of um, prevention work, a lot of just educational initiatives for people that are on campus. And that is in regards to harm reduction of just like if you're using substances, how to do them safely, how to take care of yourself, but also if you know someone and if your loved one is in active addiction or if they're in recovery in any type of way, how you can support them effectively and love with that loving kindness for them. And then there's also within the inner program, they do different social events, a lot of community buildings building with students because when you get into recovery and when you're in active addiction, you're isolated for so long in many ways. And so coming into recovery in any form of what that looks like for you, building a connection with people, building a network is really, really important. So doing that as like a young person and having that and being able to tell people that, oh, you feel the same way I do, or you're doing this, or we're not going to go to this party tonight, but we're going to go here. So yeah, it's doing like social events and things like that. And then do workshops, seminars, just really building community. And then a lot of schools have recovery housing, and that's just a house on campus or a space on campus. And it could look like a dorm room, it could look like a floor, or mine, at least for us at St. Joseph's University, is a freestanding house. And it is a recovery house for students that are in that program that want to live here, which is an added benefit. They don't have to be a part of the program in order to live. They don't have to live in the house to be a part of the program, which is that benefit for them.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I would assume, I went to Penn State, it's
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's
Yeah.
very daunting. Being a young person in recovery and then being oh, it's time to go to college. And
Mm-hmm.
being the idea that college is not accessible, or potentially not accessible because of substances that surround college life.
Yeah.
So it's I would assume that being able to have a program like that is really beneficial and reduces that stigma. Okay, if the college supports people in recovery, that means that I, as a person in recovery or wanting to be in recovery or even having the option, it's okay, this is a safer place for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, I think too, when you see that level of commitment from a university and that buy-in from people, it's meaningful, because and even the level of which that buy-in is there is even more impactful because you can see what that care for like that person is. And you're not just a number, right? Like that's how I felt when I was in college. And I can name drop if you want, but that's how I felt when I was in college, right? Like years ago, I heard you guys talking in the first podcast. You're like, oh, 10 years ago, I was 15. I was like, 10 years ago, I was 26. Thanks. No, but like, but when I was in college, I didn't have that, like I was failing, actively failing. I was friends with so many different people and for good and bad reasons, but I couldn't join a sorority. I couldn't study abroad. Like I could not live or have the experience that other college kids did. And not saying that like I should get all these privileges when I'm not doing my schoolwork. That's fair in a sense, but it's also like, where are those resources? Where is the help? Where is the care? It's really just like, well, no, you can't do this. I was told all the things I couldn't do, and I was never like even checked in on at all. And then, of course, my dad was like, "You're not going back. Like you're not doing what you're supposed to do, right?" Um, and that kind of like put me in check a little bit, and then just kind of got even worse from there. But yeah, it it makes you feel like you're seen, and I think that's important. So
I just really love, Taylor, that you are looking at the strengths and trying to remain like positive, focused, strengths based. I think a lot of higher ed institutions, no matter where the college is or the university, like to tout that they're strengths based or trauma informed or they're making that shift, but they're not. I'll name drop. I mean, my alma mater being one,
please do.
I went to Ithaca College,
Okay.
and they loved to kind of walk the walk and be like, we are trauma informed. We do want to do things like have an on-campus recovery house, but they simply couldn't because of capacity, money, time. And that was like a big part of work that I did while I was in undergrad. But all of that being said, I didn't grow up through my college career seeing anything of the sort, like a recovery house or any off campus affiliated kind of services. And I guess I'm just like curious to hear more from you. Like, what was it like when you found out like this was a thing, quote unquote? Like when you were in that point in your professional journey and you maybe saw this job listing and you're like, I've never heard of this kind of like, I don't know, method of recovery before.
Yeah. So I actually found this job through people in the rooms of AA. So I work in NA program. I said I'm a person in long-term recovery, but Narcotics Anonymous is the program that I work. But I have a lot of friends in the other fellowship, and when early recovery would go to those meetings as well, and I developed some friendships through there as well. And 2019, no, 2021, I was told by my friend, her boyfriend. So on my campus, so I work at St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. We have a couple different meetings on campus, and it's open to the larger community, but it's really for the student body if they choose to take advantage of those resources, they need them. So there is an AA meeting on Friday nights, and I had a friend whose partner goes to that meeting, and she sent me the job listing, and she was like, this would be perfect for you. And I looked at it and I was like, I could do this with my eyes closed. This is great. Like, because, I was living in a recovery house at that time, like right when I got out of treatment, which I wasn't in treatment for very long, which we could talk about if you want. I could stand on my soapbox, but I didn't go to treatment for very long, but I went to a recovery house immediately. And it was one of the best decisions I ever could do. So I was living in that recovery house from May of 2019 to I left maybe briefly for a couple of months in 2020, but then into December of 21 is when I moved out. And through that time period, I managed the houses for that program. And so I managed the women's houses. And so I was like, oh, this is a recovery house. Is it? And then I thought like, I just was blown away that this was ever an offering on campus, on a college campus, because you just don't think that it would be because of the stigma that like surrounds substance use, right? And the unknown and the unwillingness of people to understand it. You just wouldn't think that like a university. And I guess I was kind of coming from a biased opinion because I didn't have that on campus, on any of the campuses of the three different colleges that I went to. We got it done though. right? Like we got it done. 5.5 years, we did it. But anyway, so I didn't have that resource and it just wasn't around. And for a long time, I never thought I needed those types of services or any type of recovery in any way. I grew up in the rooms. My dad was an alcoholic and but I never thought that I would ever need it, right? Because my life looked so different. So when I saw this job listing, I applied right away and I got interviewed and I got hired and I moved in. And it was just like the coolest experience. And it's been the most wonderful learning experience. And there's definitely some learning curves because what a recovery house looks like in like, I call it the real world, as opposed to on a university campus is a little different, right? Because we have to follow policies and procedures, which is all understandable and fair. But things are a little different in recovery houses that I grew up in, I guess you can say, or like other people or that I know of from other people who own them or live in them or run them or in whatever capacity. So to know that this was a resource for people on campus felt so good. And to be where I was in my recovery at that moment, it honestly completely turned my recovery around for the better. Because at that point, I was not really doing much for my recovery and I wasn't really participating and active. Like I was just kind of walking the walk. I was just walking in footsteps of what I was told to do, but I wasn't actually living in anything. I wasn't believing what I was doing. I was just kind of doing it. I don't know if that makes sense, but there was no action behind it. It was just like, okay, whatever, right? I'm running this house. Let's go to a meeting. Let's do this. Let's do that. But I was like I was angry at people and I was like annoyed and I wasn't doing it for myself. So then I got this opportunity and I was like, whoa, okay. Now I got to like talk the talk and walk the walk and I got to do the things. And it just kind of changed things around for me a little bit because now I'm given this like really, really great opportunity to be around these young people that want to be in recovery or want to explore what their relationship with substances look like and how they want to further explore what their future could look like with or without them, right? Like it's a day by day thing, but it was really cool to be able to be given that and just like the timing of where I was in my life and just like, just going through the motions of things. And it was awesome. And it's really awesome to be a part of it. And even just a part of like the larger association that we have is it's really awesome.
I mean, it's kind of like, they say like life beyond your wildest dreams. And like,
Yeah.
I always
Mhm.
like, I don't know. There were times where like I rolled my eyes at that saying, especially when life got lifey. Because I was like, wow, I have all these beautiful things and I'm miserable. But I do think like, I don't know, like you talked a little bit about that, like you have been to like multiple universities, right? Multiple college experiences. And, even like previous to that, like with your substance use, do you mind sharing like a little bit about that journey for you?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I guess I can kind of take it back a little bit. Um, so my dad was an alcoholic. He wasn't just like, oh yeah, my dad drank. My dad was a raging drunk. Um, and I lived in chaos at all times. I mean, I was young. It was like I was born in the 80s, like 90s, early 90s. It was chaotic. Um, and that this chaos of house stayed with me even till sometimes to today, right? Like it's just no family is perfect. No one is, we're just doing the best we can with what we've got. And that took a lot of perspective change for me when I, had to look back on a lot of things. But yeah, my dad was in active addiction for a long time. And then they had me, and that kind of bled into me in my early childhood. I have some childhood trauma by way of family, his family to be more specific. And that was another thing too, where we just then did not speak to his family to this day, we don't have any contact with them. And I grew up in the rooms. So like I'd go to Al-Anon and I'd go to like these meetings and all these things with my mom, and we'd have like the keep it simple magnets on our fridge. And like, so I just was like, this is a part of my life. We didn't have alcohol in the house. My dad went to a recovery house. My dad lived in Colorado to get, to get sober. And we lived out there for a little bit with him back and forth, my brother was born. And then I kind of just like lived my life and grew up and kind of went through, the ebbs and flows of what growing up and being an adolescent and a young, and then everything, right? And then young adult. And I never really drank. I actually won. So Dare, when we moved to the Poconos, that was like when Dare was like really active. And we got to write an essay. about living like substance, whatever it was, right? And I won the essay. I won it. I got to like read my essay in front of all these people. And then, yeah, like I was legit from early on, right? Of like, I don't need drugs. I don't need substances. I'm cool. And then I was like, cut to like 3, 4 years later, I was smoking pot in the woods. But so yeah, like I just didn't need substances. And then I started getting involved in just having different, I was always someone that had a lot of different friends, but also had to like deal with and navigate people's opinions of me having different friends, especially when you're young and you're in like those like seventh, eighth, ninth grade years where girls are just like vicious. And it's like, I remember you were saying it, Kelly, in the first podcast. Sorry, fan of you guys. Where you were like, it's girls just being girls, but it's also like mean. Like it's not. I don't. Was it girls being girls, or was it like
I
actual
still
bullying?
don't know to this
Like
day.
was it
Yeah.
bullying? It made me. And I'm also I'm taking like a lifespan class for my clinical masters, and I'm like, no, it wasn't bullying. Like I'm having moments of like what actually happened to me. No, so navigating life, right? And then in high school, I I smoked some pot, just hung out with some friends, would drink a little bit, but it was never anything crazy. And I never really had any type of gauge on substances at all. It just wasn't a top. It was just like daddy was an alcoholic, daddy is now sober, daddy doesn't go to meetings, he doesn't work a program. And we could talk about that later too. I had like a moment at a meeting a couple weeks ago, but anyway, so um, he was just like a dry drunk, as people call it, people call people. And not to place him in a box, but he was. And so um, I went into college and I totally lost who I was. I had no idea who I was. And I don't think I really did for a little bit because, like, you know, when you're in high school and or even in, early middle school and like those key core grades when you're really trying to figure out who you are and like who your people are and like what you want and what you don't want and just having like family tell you should be this way or you should look this way or you should think this way or you should do this, like it really really affects that subconscious and you like develop these like strong limiting beliefs. And that's what I had, and like then I went through high school and I had a lot of friends in all different friend groups, all different ages, all different grades. My mom worked at the high school, so like everybody loved her because she'd get them out of trouble and she loved like it was fun, it was a cool dynamic. But I just never really had, thinking back on it, never really had a huge sense of self in a way of like feeling super secure and like, this is what I am and this is who I am, right? And this is who I want to present myself in the world. And then I got to college and I went to college and I played tennis. I've been playing tennis my whole life. And that was why I wanted to go to college. I wanted to play tennis and I had gone to a couple different schools and and I didn't really have those moments of like, let's go to this college in this state, let's go to this college here. It was kind of just like whatever was around in like the Lehigh Valley area um, for me to look at. And so I wound up picking a college in Lehigh Valley in Bethlehem. And I played on the tennis team, but I couldn't keep up. Like I just couldn't keep up with people. And I went there because I had some friends that were going there that I thought would be like really great connections. And then I started drinking more. And then that was my freshman year. And I started smoking more. And then the sophomore year, they had on campus apartments. And I lived with 5 other people. And I just started smoking more and started drinking more. And like, as all my friends were getting A's and, whatever in our classes, I was like sleeping in geology lab. Like I was sleeping. And I don't really remember a lot of stuff, right? Like I just don't. And that's where it came in of like, I was a number to them. And it was all the things that I wasn't doing right. Left college. That kind of, my dad took me out for what it would have been my junior year of college. And I just went back to the Poconos and went to community college, Northampton Community College, which is like very local. There's I think the largest one is in Bethlehem, but then there's some subsets, and one is in right where I was in Tannersville in the Poconos. And I did that for a year, and I was like, I don't want to do this I don't want to live in the Poconos. I want to go to college. So I moved back to Staten Island, and I went to CSI. I went to College Staten Island, which is a CUNY school, and I played tennis, and I made some really great friends. And then I made some other friends that did harder drugs. And yeah, and that kind of just like really catapulted my life and my way of being. And a lot of it was because I just was trying to find where I fit in the world. Like, who was I? What did I represent? And I didn't know because I was being told so many things of how I should look by my mother and like my family. It's not all her fault. Like, it's everyone. Like, it's, and it was me and it was the people that I was surrounding myself with. And it was like, should I act this way? Or just because I want to be friends with this person, but they all don't like her. Why is that? Like, it was just always something and always opinions of others that I never fully, I was too wrapped up in that I never fully got what I wanted to be and who I wanted to like walk through and move through this world as. And I struggled with that for a long time. And I just kind of accepted that that was my life. This is who I was. I'm going to do drugs and I'm going to hang out. And it was all okay because I was working and I was going to school. I wasn't doing well. I was like going to school. Um, and it just kind of like manifested from there into harder drugs. And then it was, I moved back to the Poconos. And, and I've witnessed people overdosing. I have witnessed, like I have gone to doctors to get prescriptions. Like I have done a lot of things in my active addiction. And it wasn't until I got clean and sober that I realized that those years were all active addiction because I didn't realize like the behaviors of it, where I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess like the last couple of years when I was doing like hard drugs, that maybe that was what it was. It was like, no, like I've been in it for like decades. I just didn't have disastrous consequences of like being, houseless or not having, like I just didn't have that, or I could have at some point probably, Um, and yeah, I just kind of thought that how I was living was fine. And it was like this very victim mentality. And like it was owed to me. I worked hard. I worked downtown New York City for a long time. And I was so privileged to be able to have that opportunity that I had. And I was too deep in this friendships and these just whatever was the absolute chaos that was going on in my life from like 2010 to when I got clean in 2019 was just like insane, right? And that is just like a small period. Um, and I just lived in that chaos and I thought it was normal. And I thought arguing with friends was normal. And I thought who stole whose pills was normal. And I thought overdosing, like I thought it was normal, right? And then I had a friend who overdosed, who then decided to get clean. And we were like, well, we're going to support you and we're going to go to meetings and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then we're going to go get high later. We'll be all right. I remember going to my first NA meeting years ago, like maybe in that 2010 to 2013 era, and being like, I'm just here to support. I'm just here to support, right? Like never thinking that I needed any of that stuff. And I lived that way for a long time, that like I did not have, I was comparing myself. Like I said, I wasn't houseless. I wasn't using IV drugs. I was using the drugs that you could put into IVs, but I wasn't like, I was not just, that just wasn't my way of doing it. Right. And I was working and, I owed it to myself to where I could work an 8-hour shift and be in the city and get on that ferry and come home and do coke until 6 a.m. and then go right to work again. Like that's fine. I'm fully functional. Until I wasn't, until I really, really wasn't. And so then I moved back to the Poconos in like 2016, 2015 ish, 2016. And I was talking to someone and, this relationship with this human that like was so toxic and so horrible. And like, he really taught me kind of like how to, where my self-worth wasn't basically. And I learned some of my behavior patterns through that relationship of like texting after like a week and being like, oh, who's this? Like, you were just with me 3 days ago. Like, what are you actually saying? But I kept with it. And we were using, and I moved back to the Poconos and I thought, because I would see him every weekend and I'd go back to Staten Island and like the crazy things that I would do, right? Like I would drive to Pennsylvania to the Poconos, go out all night. And then like the next, like I'd drop him off at 5 a.m. and then I'd wired, go back to Staten Island and like work or go to school or whatever. Like it just was so unmanageable and so insane. And then I moved back to the Poconos. I was like, oh, this will fix it. We're gonna fall in love. We're gonna be together forever, and we're gonna like do all the things because like I don't need drugs to hang out with him, but he does in order to hang out with me. And lived like that for a little bit. Got into even harder drugs, and just really 2019, the beginning of 2019, I was miserable. I was miserable. Um, and I'll never forget that. I had a friend who was my roommate in college who, like, bless her heart, had no idea what she was getting herself into when I like applied to work for her company. Well, like the company she worked for. Um, and it was like I did property management for a while. I was working in senior living and in the Poconos, and I quit that job because I got caught. I got caught not being at work because I was going to buy drugs. And the maintenance guy was like, she's not here. Where is she? And it was like, and then I got in trouble. And instead of, because my disease progressed with a specific drug of like doing it every once in a while and just like here and there or at night because I deserved it because I worked all day and I went to the gym. Now I'm gonna have my protein shake and I'm gonna do some drugs in my bedroom and I'm gonna watch TV. And I deserved that. And I did that for a little bit to where it progressed to where I could not go. And then I was doing it in the mornings and I couldn't go any at all without it. Like that was my day, right? That's how my day started. How it was my middle of my day. It was the end of my day and all in between. So I had to leave and yeah, I got caught. And like my boss was like, what are you doing? My boss worked in Scranton. So like I was in the Poconos and like I kind of just I ran the place, but like my boss was in Scranton. So like I could just kind of come and go as I please. And I sure as hell did. And I had to have a conversation. I was like, you know what? I just don't think that this is a line. Like, you know, you guys just aren't supporting me in any of this, and you're not seeing the bigger picture. This is done wrong, and like deflecting. And I quit on the spot. I didn't have a job for a little bit, and I worked at this like gym in the Poconos, and I was stealing from them, and they caught me on camera, and because I stole a lot from a lot of yeah, and they caught me on camera, and I was like, I didn't do it. What are you talking about? I'm on camera. Like you're on camera, hun, you know? And then I got this job in Bethlehem for this property management company. And that was where I was like really bad. So my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 liver lung cancer in 2017, August of 2017. And he was good for a little bit. He was good for like a year. And then it really started, you know, we just started seeing that slow progression, right? With his breathing and whatever. And so I would use that as an excuse because I was late for work. It was like a 40-minute drive. If I left on time, like he would wake me up and be like, Taylor, like you gotta go to work. It's like 8:15, like, and you have to be at work at 8:45. Like, what are you doing? You know, like, and I would use that. Oh, I'm sorry, my dad's sick. He's not feeling well right now. I'll be right there, all this or that. But really, I was going to get high first, or couldn't wake up because I couldn't get up because I was up all night, or I was just heavily like sedated, you know. And I was sleeping at my desk at work and I was lying and I was late all the time. And 2019, that beginning of 2019, I was miserable, like I said. And I was using to stay well. I was like made really good friends with my dealer at one point and was able to um, take him to go if he needed, and I would get a discount on what I had, which was great because it was just like a 40-minute drive, and we were good. And I was set for however many days or hours or whatever, um, and that was what I was doing for a good while. And I remember he and I would talk, and we would both be like, "We hate this. Like, this is not a life that we want to live anymore." But like, here we are doing it, and we're in it, you know. And I'm lucky and I'm fortunate to where I've had some run-ins with like law enforcement, but I've never been you know, maybe like an overnight or whatever, but like I've never fully been um, down that path. And I'm fortunate because there have been plenty of times, and I mean like back in my car, outside of my car, handcuffed while the cops are going through my car, right? And things just never happened for whatever reason. Nothing ever manifested into like a bigger issue for me. And even then, right? Like going back to that quickly, like me and the guy, because like, of course, we didn't stop talking, even though like he would berate me and be nasty to me. And he just, you know, God love his soul, he has like a lot of his own things that he has to go through, right, and work on. And we're only willing when we're willing, you know. And he's just not yet, I don't think, at least. And we were in my car in Stroudsburg, and we were doing what we were doing, and we hear these knocks on our windows. There's a cop on my side, a cop on his side. And I was like, I had drugs in my bra, I had drugs in my glove compartment, I had drugs in my hands. Like I was like in it. And they took us out and they handcuffed us and they went through my car. And in my head, I was like, how dare they take all my stuff? How dare you? And I was annoyed because then like they, like let us go because we were compliant or whatever their reasons were. And they're like, well, you can't drive away because technically you'd be under the influence and we'd have to arrest you. And I was like, you're really like cramping my style. Like now you have all my drugs. Now I can't leave. So we had to go through all these things. And I just remember being like, how dare you do that? Right. And at that time, I was trying to be a substitute teacher. And I was like, my life's ruined. If I'm going to have a record, like I can't be a substitute teacher. And even then, it wasn't like I shouldn't have, like probably should have stopped. Like any other maybe person would have, I maybe assume wrongly or whatever, but like would have stopped doing that. And I didn't. I was like annoyed and like found drugs to get high because I was annoyed by it. Like, how dare you? And I'm still kind of annoyed by it because like, where did it go? Got like any repercussions from it? So it's like, what'd you do with my shit? But no. So it was not a wake up call for me by any means, and I don't even know when that was timeline wise, but that was not even close to when I ended doing what I was doing. And yeah, that lasted for a long time, like the lying, the manipulating, the victim, just like the stealing, and yeah. Then beginning of 2019 came, and it was like April. I was like, all right, I gotta go get help. I was like, I can probably do outpatient and like take some medication to detox from, because I was also able to get that too, like because I knew like if I'd go on trips, I would have to take that. And first, like, the way that my disease progressed is that I wasn't doing them long enough to where and if this is too much like war story, then just tell me and I'll like stop talking. I'm trying to keep it as like general as possible. But like when I first was using opiates, I never really had any type of like withdrawal from them. But looking back, there were definitely some like benzos and stuff that I was using that like I could tell was like affecting my personality and like the way I moved through the world, right? And I had a boyfriend at the time, and like he got like the brunt of all of that. And, like, I don't fight people, but like when I'd go to bars and like want to fist fight people, like, probably what you're doing, right? Like that's weird, I never did, but like I always wanted to, and I thought I was tough, and I was not. Like peace and love more than anything. So like always like through my veins. But I never really had any type of like really like physical symptoms. So I just was so naive to that. And then when my drugs of choice kind of came into my life, I didn't have any type of withdrawal symptoms at first, or like any physical symptoms at first, because it wasn't, my disease didn't progress at that point. Like it was still kind of manageable for me. And then it wasn't, right. And so I would have to take things because I couldn't go on vacations and I couldn't do anything because I was like at the mercy of my drugs of choice. And so when I was thinking about getting treatment, I was like, oh, I could just go get one off this so and so, and then I can like maybe I'll do like therapy, right? Because I love therapy. I've been in therapy since I was a kid, and number one fan, go to therapy.
That makes three of us. That makes three of us.
Period.
Yeah, like I love therapy. It is. I see her in 2 weeks, and I can't wait to sit on that freaking couch, man. So, and it's just something that like, yeah. So I was like, yeah, I could do that. That's easy. Let me look at outpatient place. Let me look this, that. And I could never detox on my own. I was not, I don't know how, if this is going to sound, I was not mentally strong enough to do that on my own. I needed help, and I didn't know how to ask for it. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do, but I did know that if I go to my dad, he'd figure it out because he always figured shit out for me. So I went to my dad and I got honest, and I was like, Dad, I need help. And he was like, all right. And I was like, I have a problem. He was like, what is it, babe? We can figure it out. And I was like, I think it's a little bit more than that. Like, I think it's a little heavier than that, Dad, And I told him, and at that point, I told him I had a problem with pills because I really didn't want to be honest with the drug that I was doing, because it had such like back then, or like years ago, like that particular drug was just like, didn't look good to people. It was like a dirty drug. And I didn't want to say it to my dad, so I just told him it was pills. And he was like, all right. Like, and I was like, but don't tell mom. We gotta figure this. And he looked at me and he was like, how can we ever do this and not tell your mother? Like, we have to tell your mother, like, she loves you. Because, you know, during that time, like, I didn't really even mention, but like, my relationships were terrible. I was isolated from friends. And like, even when I was back in Staten Island and was friends with different people, like, those core relationships that I made struggled. And like, I could never apologize to those people enough, you know, like, those types of things really, really struggled. And I didn't even see it. I didn't even recognize it. And, but my relationship with my mother was terrible. It was so bad. My relationship with my brother was bad, you know, and my family in general, but my relationship with my mother was terrible. And I just thought it was, she hated me. She didn't want to, she didn't, you know, she just hated me. Right. That was like daunting to think. Anyway, I told her, well, we told her, and we, what, that was like end of April. Cause I went to work one day and I got fired from that property management job. And I was pissed. Who are you to tell me to come into work and fire me for me to now have to go all the way home? And I got paid that weekend. I got paid on Friday and I was freaking broke by Saturday, man. I was broke. And I didn't know what to do. But of course, when I got fired, uh, I applied for assistance. They were like, who are you to fire me? I didn't do anything wrong. You know, I didn't do anything. I'm not doing anything wrong. And had to live like that for a few days and had to figure it out. And that's when I got honest. And I was just like, I need help. And I went to treatment on May 2nd, 2019. And when I left for treatment, I did not know if I was ever going to see my dad again because he was dying, like deteriorating in our eyes in front of me, right? And so I went to treatment out here in Pennsylvania. I went to Philadelphia and Devon, PA, outside Philly, and I was only there for like 5-6 days because my insurance company did not think that my level of drug use was substantial for a 28 to 30 day stay in inpatient. So they were okay with me detoxing, but they were not okay with me detoxing from the detox medication because that's also what you need to do. You need a little bit of time for your body to like regulate from that medication as well. And I knew about recovery housing from a job that I worked in Jersey because like I went to so many different jobs because I kept some jobs, but then like it just was, you know, things started showing their unmanageability in a lot of ways where I had so many different little jobs, like these odd jobs. And I worked for this company in Jersey, and they had the guys that worked there were all part of recovery housing. They were all in recovery. And I remember every week, every Monday, they'd come in and they'd be like, how's your weekend? I was like, yeah, great. They're like, let me know when you want to go to a meeting. And I laughed at them because I was like, this is so silly. But I knew that they lived in recovery housing. That's how I found out about recovery housing because those guys lived there. And so when I knew that I had to leave treatment, I was like, put me in a recovery house, find something because I can't go back to the Poconos. There's no way. There's no way. Because like, and also like put it in perspective, like I'm in my 30s, right? And like, that's no way to live. I was what, like 30, 31, 32. Like I was so tired of living that way. And I was just like, here it is. Like here, I just, whatever I need to do, I knew that if I went back to the Poconos, that what I just went through would be a waste. But I also knew that I wouldn't be able to get away with my same bullshit because now my parents knew like my jig was up, right? Like so I was like kind of like helpless at that sense where I'm like, there's no way, like I won't be able to do anything. So I was like, put me in a recovery house, like, you know, do something. So they put me in a recovery house, which is what I was speaking about before. I stayed until about 2021, and I was sick for a while, like a month and a half. I was withdrawing post acute, like because I had like tapered, and then the next, like my last taper, and the next day I had to leave, or even that, I don't even remember, but basically within 24 hours I had to leave. And
what is post acute?
So it's just still the withdrawal symptoms that you have that kind of last. So like the skin crawly feelings or like the restless legs and like your stomach probably doesn't feel too good and like just being like shivers, like either hot, really cold, or And I felt that way because I was tapered with Suboxone, and they taper it in different milligram settings. And so you go like, depending, 8, 6, 4, 2, none, or 6, 4, 2, none, depending. And I you need a couple of days afterwards, right? So like when you're in treatment, you're given these like comfort meds, what they call them, and you're given what you need to detox, but then you're also given these comfort meds to help you that are like they're not benzos, they're non-addictive, and it's just a way for your body to regulate from what you've been putting in your body for so long. And I didn't have that opportunity to do that. I didn't have the opportunity to have the comfort meds and have them make me, have it work and all that stuff. I had them while I was detoxing, of course, but like I wasn't set up for that when I left. And had I known that now, I would have advocated for myself more, because I didn't know that would help me a little bit, like the rested legs, or I couldn't sleep, and the recovery house that I was in, they had IOP, which is intensive outpatient treatment. And they had all of that type of stuff that we had to go to. And there was a psychiatrist there that kind of was able to, give me some stuff to help me sleep, but nothing was working because I was just so uncomfortable in my body. And so I had that for about a month and a half, and it was extremely uncomfortable, but I was in that recovery house. I didn't have a car for a little bit. And then my dad got sicker. He was not doing well. He wasn't responding to medication in some ways. And my dad chose not to do chemo after a while because he knew it was going to work. I think it was stage 4. Like there was nothing that they could do. And it was all over his body. Like it wasn't just like liver and lungs. It was in his ribs and his breast. It was crazy. So I, then finally was able to get my car because I needed to go home and see my dad at some points. And and then my dad died in July. I had like 60 days clean. And that was like the worst thing, man. That was the worst thing, because it was like, what do I do? Like, what do you do next? Right. And I just was like, I just would do what he wanted me to do. And I remember my mom telling me that. I was like, do I go back to the house now, Mom? Like, do I stay here with you? Like, what do I do? And she was like, you do what he would want you to do. And that would be to go back to the house and go and live and and take care of yourself. Like, the world doesn't stop. And that's the crazy thing about grief too. And just like life in general, grief just kind of adds like an extra layer, like deeper layer to it. But like life does not stop. Like the clock does not stop. And so I got clean, and I kind of just, begrudgingly did things I needed to do. And that first year of my recovery was like, it was like on autopilot, I guess, because I just really didn't know what was happening with me. I didn't know what was going on. I was just kind of going through the motions. I was going to IOP, and like they kept me in that thing for a year. Like, you're just supposed to go for like 6 months. I was there for a freaking year, man. Like, oh my God. Yeah. So I stayed until I got this job, and now I'm here.
Damn.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Applauding every step of the way of your journey. And
Mm-hmm.
like, dude, like for people that don't necessarily know
Mm-hmm.
about addiction, like it's tough. It's tough because like there's so much stigma. And like you
Mm-hmm.
talked about like, well, I told my dad like I was just using pills because I didn't want to say like, the O word. It's like you don't
Yeah.
want to say it. And now we have like an opioid epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Where like we're all talking about it. But like, I mean, you said you had 60 days when
Yeah.
your dad passed. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting like how you talked about because I had this mentality too when I was getting clean or trying to get clean. It was like, you haven't been through what I've been through, it's like you don't know. I need these substances in order to like I deserve this. And
Mm-hmm.
I find it fascinating that you didn't use that card when your dad passed, right?
Yeah.
Like why do you think you didn't?
Yeah, what helped you get through?
That was my reservation. So my reservation in life was I would never be able to live in a world that my dad isn't in. But I am. Um, Yeah, that was my biggest reservation. So when that became my reality, which I didn't think it would ever become my reality, like I, even when he was sick, I was like, he'll be fine. Like, he'll be fine, you know? And then when he was really sick, and it was like, like April before I got clean, and then like all of when I got, May, I was like, oh, like this is like real life. Like my dad is dying. Like my dad's like dying. And even still, like I remember I went to the beach with my friend on July 3rd, and I was talking to him on the phone. And I was like, all right, like, uh, he was like, are you sure you want to be at the beach? Are you sure you want to be here? Are you sure you want to be there? Like, you want to be mindful of yourself, right? Because, like, I mentioned that my dad was a dry drunk, but like, my dad was like a really smart man, and he was a really, really great man in a lot of ways, but he wasn't the best in a lot of ways as well, right? He was just a human, and which is crazy, he but he knew the program, right? He knew that like people, places, and things is important, and it's just a shame in my perspective that he didn't like use the program that he talked about in present day, like in his daily life, like he knew about when he was taught and when he was suggested when he first got sober years ago, in like the 90s or whatever. But like, yeah, anyway, and I was like, yeah, dad, like I'll be fine, it'll be good. And then like, what, 4 or 5 days later, he died on the 7th, like he was gone. And I was just like, what the hell? What? So I got through it because I was in that recovery house. I got through it because they wouldn't leave me the hell alone. Leave me alone. I got through it because I was in treatment, basically in that sense, like in outpatient treatment. And then like once he passed, I was like, well, like I have the perfect excuse. Like my dad's dead, right? And like that was my one reservation, was like living in a world where my dad isn't, and now I'm doing it. And so like, what do I do? And I just was like, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm told, and like I'm just gonna follow these suggestions. And I like I said, I was on autopilot, and I like didn't really think. I knew that it was my one excuse, and it was my one like get out of jail free card, but I don't think it really was, because like the way my disease was progressing was that like I don't know where I would be today if I had let myself do that. Because it's not like I didn't know where to go, I didn't know what to do. Like, where, when you want something, right? Like, especially when you're talking about substances. And I just didn't want to put myself in that position, I don't think, like I don't, but it also wasn't this like huge thought process of like, oh, well, I need to do this or I need to do that. I just kind of like put one foot in front of the other and just did what I was told. And that was go to a meeting, go to IOP, go home, and that's it. And I did. Um, and I had, like the love of the people that were in my recovery house, and I had the love of like people in NA, and crying on the floors at meetings, like literally sitting on the floor and crying, in some of them. And yeah, it just, I don't know. I just kind of put one foot in front of the other and just did it, because it was just like, why not do it? Like, why not try to like live my life the way I need to? Because I was just so over it, and I was so done. And like I have this thing, Kristen knows, where I'm like very heavily based on like age. And like I'm 36 now. And like I don't know, look it. No, I'm 36 now. And it's like and I feel or have these expectations of like where my life should be at this age, and like what I should be doing with myself, and all the things that I should be doing. At that time, I guess I had like a little bit of that in there, where it was just like, dude, like when are you just gonna like it? This is just it, right? Like there was, it's like they talk about surrender. Like there was full surrender to the fact that like I could not use drugs. Like, and I thought I was like, well, if I just don't do that drug, I'll be good, right? But I was like, no, like it is then having to go back and redo all these things and talk to all these people, and like, and I didn't want anything to do with that anymore. I just didn't want that life anymore. And so, and I don't think he wanted that life for me, and I don't think he even realized that that was the life that I was living. And I felt really like a disappointment. And so I just was like, I'm just not going to use. I'm just not going to do it. And I didn't, and I wanted to. There were times like And I probably sound like I didn't want to get high at all. I wanted to get high all the time. I wanted to use every day. And I knew that that would make me feel 10 times better. That would take me out of my feelings and out of my reality and put me in a fantasy world or put me in like a stagnant state to where I didn't have to feel a damn thing. And that's what I wanted. But I just chose to feel it because it was just like a temporary fix. And then I was just like, I got to go through the process again and I got to do this again. And I was just tired at that point. Like I was exhausted and I just didn't want to deal with my mother. Like her being like, what are you know up my ass? And like, I just knew that that would be what was coming. Now she knows, right? The truth's out there and like, I can't go back now, And it's just like, and that was kind of what kept me in line a little bit too. But then also just being like, this is not the life that he would have wanted for me. So it doesn't matter where my age is or where I think I should be. I'm here now. And so what am I going to do to change my perspective in my life? So.
I love that, Taylor, and thank you for sharing. And I also really I wrote this down because I was stuck on it. What you said about your dad being a dry drunk and knowing the program, but not wanting to work the program is my mom. And she's like in that exact same place, like has been sober the entirety of my life, like give or take when I was initially born, but I don't remember or recall. But yeah, I'm just like thinking about that and how your dad could support you through um, that lens. And I guess my question to you would be when you think about young adults who are either on your campus or who you might not ever cross paths with that are on your campus and at work and who are struggling and they might know the program, but they're avoiding working the program, what's like one piece of advice you would give them to kind of help them get to that point where they're like, okay, I really am ready to be honest with myself and seek treatment?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think my main suggestion for someone with that thought process, and giving a little context to how I'm going to answer my question is when you're a young person in recovery, you're worried about what your peers think of you constantly. You are worried about like that anonymity piece. You are worried about like how you're going to be perceived by people. You don't want to ask questions of why you're not drinking or why you're not doing this. You don't want to do that. It is like I don't even know if embarrassing is what the right word to use, but it's an uncomfortable feeling and space to be in. Because why do you need to explain yourself to anyone, right? So to go into that is you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. And you do what's best for you and what feels good for you and your spirit and your soul and the life that you want to live. And if that is you want to drink a couple times a week, but like maybe you shouldn't smoke pot or vice versa, okay, right? But like take care of you because life begins and ends with you. So like how you flow through life in the beginning, in the middle stages of that is what's important. And like people's opinions and having to explain yourself does not matter. And it's like what matters is how you feel. So if you need to adjust, fix maybe or change, you don't need to fix anything, but like change things or maneuver things, you do it to what serves you best. Yeah.
I love that so much. Which, there are some days where it's easier and some days where I am like
Right.
totally hyper aware of the way that somebody's looking at me. And I'm like, I need to change my entire personality for this one person,
Yeah.
Which is like ridiculous. But, I don't know. Like, I just want to like touch base on, like I'm just thinking about, because I didn't know like all the ins and outs like of you and inactive addiction. And like, I'm like, so many similarities. Being like a young person, like you are a young person. We're all young people. And like I also am seeing in my head, like now I understand why you were like sobbing on that panel. Which I'm sure you can give.
Way to out me.
I outed you.
Always. I'm sobbing always. It's a constant state of tears.
So like just to like tell everybody about this amazing project that you got to be a part of.
Yeah. So with working in the program that I run, so my title is Collegiate Recovery Program and Residence Manager. So like I mentioned before, we have a house on campus. We have this program. So I live for now in the house with the students. Um, and we get funding. We are very, very fortunate to get funding from donors, people that are alumni of the school, and one in particular that is just like wanted to do this work. And we also have funding through Independence Blue Cross. So Independence Blue Cross insurance, but they also have a foundation, and the foundation is what gives programs money to start up collegiate recovery efforts, because they are very, very all in with that and supportive of that. So my program got it prior to me being hired. I kind of came in the second semester of us having it, and so it's like a year by year thing. And the foundation and Independence Blue Cross as a whole is doing a health equity video series, just like a couple different videos on different efforts that are going on in the community and maybe high schools or colleges and things like that. And so, of course, one of the things they wanted to do was highlight collegiate recovery, because that's one of the efforts that they put through their foundation and through the whole thing at large. And so it's funny, I got an email from the president's office like a while ago, and they were like, "Hey, Taylor, just not sure if you knew about this, but like IBX reached out, we such and such." And I was like, "Video? I have no idea what you're talking about." But I was like, I said to them, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have the information, but I'm assuming if they're reaching out to you, it's legitimate. Like it's, because I think they just wanted to see like what the angle was. And I was like, I doubt it's anything weird. Like I'm sure it's legit. And then within the next day or two, I was reached out to by IBX, and they were like, "Hey, so we're doing this video series and we want to highlight you and your program." And I was like, "Huh?" And so I was like, "Yeah, sure." Right. Cause like who would say no? Who should say, you don't say no to that. Right. But me and the constant state of imposter syndrome that I live in, I was like, me? There's no way. Like me, like Kristen, you mentioned like life beyond your wildest dreams. I still kind of roll my eyes when people say that in the rooms, but like I get it now, right? Like there are moments where I'm like, okay, but I think I don't know. That's another soapbox with certain people I say, but I get it now, because just an offset, when I got clean, like I said, I didn't know what I was autopilot. There was no like, okay, I'm gonna do a treatment and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna get this job, and I'm gonna go back to school, and I'm gonna go here. Like that was nope. Like I was just like, I just need to figure out what. I remember telling my dad, I need to figure out why I use drugs and substances, why I use substances, right? Like I'm very aware of things and how I feel emotionally, but like I need to understand myself better and why I'm constantly seeking outside of myself. And that was like my goal. And I figured it out almost too much. And so I overanalyzing all the time. And so I, have this like complex of like why there's no like there are people that could do it better. And I struggle with that sometimes. And especially recently, like I've been given these opportunities where I'm like, people want to hear what I have to say. And I just don't understand that, because that concept is so surreal to me that I'm just like, but there's so many other people in this space of collegiate recovery that could do a much better job with this video than I ever could. Right. And it's like, why don't we give voices to them instead of me? Because like, I'm just like, I'm not really much. Right. And that's such a distorted way of looking, but it's true, right? Like you just got to be honest, and like that's how I think sometimes, and I'm able to process that through and be like, no, you're not, more than just something. And so yeah, so we had them. So it was cool. We had like a discovery call, and they like asked me questions just to kind of gauge like what they would ask. And it was a full day of filming. Like they were here, and it wasn't just like a little camera. It was lights, it was cameras, it was like the big black thing behind me. Like it was like to deflect the light or bring in the light. I don't know. And it was a full day, a full day. And like it was a legit filming company, like, production company, like Heineken and like all these big names are all like like their clients, like, and it was really cool. And yeah, they just wanted to hear what I had to say and like what I want this program to be and like what I want these students to feel. And then the only way that I could be now that I'm clean is honest. Like I can't be anything other than that. And I can't, because I need like my soul and my spirit need to just be the truest form of who I am. And that wasn't always the case when I first got clean, but now that's just how I have to move through the world. And so they kept asking me, like, how does this feel? Like, I'm like, this is just very surreal to me. Like, I just don't know what I did to get to this point, you know? And I guess I can answer that question for myself in like an NA way. I stayed clean. I didn't use. My dad died, I didn't use. I broke my foot, I didn't use. Like all these things, right? Like all these excuses that I could have had. And I just one foot in front of the other. And here I am standing in front of my house with this big production crew, or like in my house at one point, and like filming and being asked questions about things and like talking to people about stuff and like them wanting to hear my experience and like my opinion. And I just said something like 4.5 years ago it's a decent amount of time, but it's not that long, and like 4.5 years ago I was using a horde of drugs, right? And like so now to be standing in front of this house of this program that I run to talk to you people about this stuff is like pretty wild. Like it's pretty gnarly. And so yeah, so that happened. We did a full day of filming, which was cool. And they were great. Like the people that did it, they were so great. And it was awkward though, like you just like filming and being told, oh, walk through this way again or walk through that way again. I was just like, okay. And I was just at one point I was like, I don't know what to do with my hands, like what to do with like my body, like what are we doing? And so but it was a really, really wonderful experience. And then they had to come back another day, just like a couple hours, just to get a couple of different shots that they need, like just a little bit more, because like the day just ran out of daylight, honestly. And so on the 10th, like 2 weeks ago, they did a summit, a recovery ready summit, which is what they usually do. Last year we went to DC and did some stuff, but this year we were in the city in IBX's building, which was so nice. Funny story. So the woman who is like the person I speak to about like the funding that we get and everything, but she was the one talking to me. She emailed me about it. And I said to her, I was like, are you sure you want me? And she was like, yes, Taylor. Like like you're literally the video that we're going to appear. So of course you have to be on the panel, right? But she's like, well, are you going to drive in? I was like, yes, because living in New York City, I took so much public transportation that now I do not take public transportation any chance that I can get because it is daunting. And so she's like, okay, well, we'll give you you can park in our garage. Like you just go up to give us your information and you can park in the garage. We'll reserve a spot for you. I was like, perfect. So I find it, and which was not easy because it was like a little like offset thing, like little whatever, like hole in the wall parking garage down the road. And the woman goes, all right, go down in and park in this spot of B1. You'll see that there's reserved parking there. It's like, okay, great. So I go down and there is a placard on the wall that says reserved parking. And so I park in it. I back up with my new car. I'm feeling so cool with my big backup camera that I can actually see out of. And the guy comes to my car and he goes, excuse me, this spot is reserved. And I was like, yeah, I know, it's reserved for me. And he was like, and who are you? I'm Taylor Moran. What do you mean, though? Who am I? No, so he's like, no. These are reserved for like the president and like the CEO of like this company. And I was like, okay, where do I go? Like, who do I think I am? So you just park around the corner or whatever. So I get up there and I go to like the front desk and they're like, Taylor? I was like, yeah, that's me. How do you know my name? I'm like, oh, we all watched the video last night. We all got like a private viewing of it. And, I mean, there were tears. People had tears in their eyes. It was beautiful. It was so good. And I was like, what is happening in my world right now? And so I go up and it was like, there were different things that were going on that day. There was like a, agenda of stuff, like itinerary of things. And so, yeah, I sat on the panel and, first of all, we watched the video. So I am a very non-corporate American human being, right? Like so with the ties and the suits and and I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. Like to like watch myself in front of a room of people that like, I know some people I knew because they're like within the fields too, but people I don't know. And like, it just was so, again, surreal. Like that's the only way I can describe it, surreal, but like amazing and like so fantastic, you know? And yeah, and I sat on this panel and the woman that was facilitating it was like, so I'd love to get feedback from the panel and what we thought about the video. And so the one woman went, and she was like, this is amazing. This is beautiful. Taylor, like, this is such a great job. You're doing such great work, blah, blah. And, you know, she's in this field too, right? And so is the other person. And from different colleges in the Philly area. And I was next. And she's like, Taylor, how do you feel? And I was just tears. Like immediate tears. They were filming it. And I was just like, and it was just, because it is surreal. Because 4.5 years ago, this was not my life. 4.5 years ago, I was, to quote, you know, I was finding means and ways to get more. I was not living a good life. I was stealing, I was lying, I was manipulating, and I was doing whatever I needed to do in order to get high. And, you know, like fill in the blanks, right? And it's wild. It's a wild journey to be in this position. And it is something that I don't take lightly because, like, that's going to be on social media. Like, that's going to be viral. And, like, I don't want to be viral. You know, I mean, I do, but, like, you know, like, what? No, I'm good, you know? But it is, like, a level of importance that, like, I never knew that I would have. And it's, like, a different sense of self, too. So, like, that little girl that, like, had no idea who the hell she was for so long is, like, looking and being like, holy crap, you're going to be on LinkedIn. Like, you know, like Instagram. Like, no, LinkedIn probably wasn't the first one I should have said, but that's it. Like, literally, like, because LinkedIn's professional. It's professional, you know? People, like, you know. But, yeah, like, it's just, like, it is surreal. And it is life beyond my wildest dreams. And I won't roll my eyes because it's fucking true. You know, like it's so true. Um, and yeah, so I cried and I was crying and I was like, like, because then I had like that moment of like awareness where like you are crying in a room full of people, get it together, sis. You know, and I was just like, I just need to do this for a second and I'll be good. Okay, like there was no like everyone was just like what, and I was just like, yeah, this is just my process. Just give me a minute. And then, you know, we talked to the panel and it was a really cool experience. It was really awesome. And I'm really excited to see like the final version because what I saw was a proof. And then I mean, I saw the final version at that panel, you know, at that summit, of course, but like to be able to have the final version, I'm really excited about. So yeah, it's really cool. And it was cool to be able to like show the proof to my family and be like, hey, this is the life that I'm building for myself. This is the network that I'm building. These are the people that I'm like communicating with and being involved with, and like here I am, you know, and like it's like a nice full circle moment, and it continues to be, you know, because like I'm not done yet, you know, but yeah.
It's incredible. Kristen shared some version of that video with me and I watched it. That was like one of the first things I did this morning was watch it. And I'm like learning to project things on my TV. So I projected you up there. I was like, Kristen, this is so beautiful. God damn it. Oh my God. It really is incredible, Taylor. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here and being so vulnerable and willing to share all about your life in hopes of inspiring and advocating for somebody that's listening or hearing this. And I just feel like I know you like as a person now, and it's a wonderful feeling to get to know you and just an honor to be here. And Kristen and I just want to thank you so much for being here and just sharing and talking and chatting.
Yeah.
And I hope we can do it again soon. But before we close up today, where can the people find you on social media? Where can they find you? Do you have any events or anything online coming up that folks can pay attention to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, you know, like the program is on Instagram, my profile is on Instagram, and the video will be up soon, and it'll be on literally like every single social media platform.
And we will link it. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to be. I think next week or something, but once I get it, I'll send it. And yeah, this has been an amazing experience. Thank you so much for giving me, first of all, thank you both for putting yourselves on this platform and sharing your stories and letting other people in to share theirs and giving voices to people that don't feel like they have one or like aren't important enough to talk to. Because that's really, really special. And you guys sharing your stories is like wonderful and special. So thank you for letting me in. And this like filled my dreams of like wanting to be on a podcast. So like thank you so much. I'm thriving in my life. And I'm just happy to be here.
Oh, after that video premieres, you'll be everywhere. This is just
The
the first.
girls will come.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is just the first stop, but
And
thank
so
you.
will the tears.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you again, Taylor. You're
Thank
incredible. We love you so much, and we look
You.
forward to just having you in our life.
you so much. I love you guys too.